Hey, what's up, everybody? Um, it's been a little bit. Been really busy preparing for a lot of stuff, a lot of film related stuff, a lot of interviews coming up. Super exciting. If you don't know, this week is the beginning of the 2026 season of Cinequest, the film festival that hits San Jose every year and has for over 30 plus years. Now, this is my 10th year covering the event in some capacity, and I'm still amazed. So much to talk about, so many other movies, tons of reviews. I have a bit of a backlog, some requests. People have asked for certain things to be reviewed, so that will be coming up pretty soon. Hopefully, if I can swing it intermittently with the Cinequest coverage that I'm doing between now and next week, between the reviews from the festival. I got a couple of interviews coming, and so just a bunch of cool stuff that I'm excited to get into. Speaking of which, last night was the first night of Cinequest, and I had a good time. I watched a great movie, and there was some great, really cool discussion points about AI. Every year there's always some new thing. Cinequest has like some angle that they're always hitting. This year and last year alike, I think AI has been a big topic, and so it's weird though how much change has taken place with AI, as you've seen likely on social media or anywhere else you might be learning about AI with regard to filmmaking or any creative pursuits. In the year since last year's festival opening night, there were a group of filmmakers there who actively use AI to aid in their storytelling. And the angle last year was about just reminding people that AI is not here to take people's jobs. It will affect people's jobs for sure, but it's not here to take people's jobs. This is the belief of many staffers who are connected to Cinequest. They're championing really the embracing of a new technology to help deepen and enhance storytelling. So it's really cool to see the different things people are coming up with. This is, of course, understanding that there's some touchiness around the subject of AI in relation to creative stuff, but still, nevertheless, interesting stuff taking place. Last night was almost like a continuation of that. Yeah, some of the same filmmakers from last year, some new ones presenting short films. This was ahead of the main event, which was the opening night film, her song, which I'm excited to talk about. That's actually what this video. If you've seen the thumbnail, you've seen the title of this video, you know that's what this video is actually going to be about. But I have to talk about. I was excited to just talk about some of the initial happenings when it came to Cinequest. This is one of the things I look forward to most each year when it comes to sort of film stuff. There's other festivals that are cool. Hadn't been to some of those in a while, and I'm hoping that this year I'll be able to get back to some of those other ones that I've missed. And they're just bigger festivals, and it's more daunting to try to get interviews and like figuring out what you're going to see and having the time to put together reviews and schedule stuff. It's just a lot of running around. Cinequest feels like I can do it's similar, but I can take more time with how things are being structured. So opening night was great, but I'm really excited to talk about this movie. I'm hoping that before the festival's over, I can get an interview with the director, John M. Keller, because I really did enjoy the offering. So if you're still here after that meandering introduction, relax and prepare yourself as we get into the discussion on her song. Let's talk about it. This movie is the comedy or dramedy written and directed by John M. Keller, and I hadn't seen any of his other work. This is the first film that I've seen from him, and it's a beautiful story about a writer who is is finds herself in south of France, in the village where her grandmother grew up, and she's trying to write a book about her grandmother. She befriends a local woman who also in the village, and they see each other often. And through conversations with this other woman, she becomes really taken with the life that her new friend has lived, and all the lives that she's lived, and all the practical skills that she's developed over the course of her time in life. She's traveled a lot. She's loved a lot. She's really developed. She knows everything from how to fix cars to how to fix the electricity in the house, to sanding wood furniture, and foraging, cooking. She knows how to cut hair. She's done all these things. She's just an amazing, majestic wizard of a woman. And our main character becomes really enamored and taken with the stories that her friend shares. And in the process of trying to write the book about her grandmother, she finds that her friend becomes a stand-in for the grandmothers, and that ends up being the character who she ends up basing the character in her book on. That's sort of the main story. The story is set in 2019, 2020. The movie's not specific, but what is specific about it, what gives you an idea of around when the movie is taking place, which is it's set like right at the start of the outbreak of COVID-19. That immediately puts the movie into a clear context. So it wasn't that long ago. It's in the backdrop, but it ends up finding its way into the fabric of the story, and not necessarily in a way that impacts things too majorly, but what it does do, though, it presents something in the story that is reminiscent of 1940s France, sort of World War II time, because our main character is writing a book about her grandmother who was in her 20s during the Second World War, and she starts to see these parallels between what's happening during COVID and the lockdowns, and how people are sort of leaving different places or shuttering in place, and what that might have looked like during World War II, during the Nazi occupation, when it seemed like the war was far away and the enemy wasn't going to be there, and all of a sudden it was there. Same thing with COVID, where it was like we were being notified about COVID happening, and it was like this crazy thing happening elsewhere, and all of a sudden it was right in your neighborhood, and you had to immediately adjust. And so little things like that are coming up, but really that's not the story. That's a piece of it. The story really is about this writer trying to write this book. She makes friends with this other woman in the village, and they become fairly friendly. They're pretty close. They see each other fairly often. I want to say daily, and they go out and do these different activities and stuff. And our main character is just so taken with this woman, and that inspires her to write to actually write this book. She was struggling for some time, and then she gets inspiration from her friend, and then this book is now the heat is on, and she's super juiced to write this book. It's a wonderful story. It's a light, again, a different flavor from last year's opening film, which was the Luckiest Man in America, I think, which also was a dramedy. It was like a comedy with some elements of drama in it. That one had a little bit more punch. This one, though, I had written a message to one of the Cinequest staffers this morning about my experience with the film, and my hope to try to get an interview set up with director Keller. And I think I had described it to her as this movie. It was a beautiful movie with it had a covert, deep emotionality that wasn't in your face. Like, there weren't any major dramatic moments where people are screaming and crying, and not what you expect. It's not like what you would see during Oscar season or Oscar bait movies. Doesn't have that level of drama. It's much more understated, and at the same time, there's a lightness about it. COVID is, for instance, is never really treated with like, oh, this like deathly seriousness. It's treated with seriousness, and it's something to pay attention to, but it never takes away from the lightness, the airiness, and the nimbleness really of the story, and yet it still feels like it's the movie still has an impact, and a lot of that has to do with the chemistry between the actors. Immediately, that's the first thing I picked up and loved about it. So the two leads really make this movie, and one of them in particular is like really the glue that holds everything together. She's really the beating heart of the story. So we follow Olivia, who's the writer, played by the Indian cinema darling Kalki Koechlin. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing her name correctly, but she's quite famous in Indian cinema. Again, this is my first time experiencing her work, but she was just a revelation, really. She was lovely, and she was just so. She speaks fluent French. I understand that the director said after the film, at the Q&A, he mentioned that she had learned French for this movie. It's wild, but his French is perfect. It's like it's fluid, and she plays. So Olivia is a French American writer. So obviously her English is perfect, her French is perfect. Originally from this village, in the south of France, and she was just amazing. She was, she had a lightness about her. She had just her face was so expressive, and you really get pulled into. She's a character easy to follow, but her co-star, her co-lead, was the woman who really I think held this movie together, and really she's kind of the shadow backbone. She's of the whole movie. She's the character through which we understand the concept of a song, like her song. She's the one who, and she bookends the movie with that concept. And she plays Madeleine. This is Elia Claire, who is obviously the other actor in this movie. She's also a producer on this project. She's also a filmmaker in her own right. But she really makes this movie, and quietly. She's not like this crazy presence. She's very, there's a consistency, and she brings a quiet wisdom to the character of Madeleine. And we get to see, even if we don't get to see all the skills and things that she knows, and we, as the audience, like Olivia, are learning as the movie goes on about we get little tidbits about the other lives she's lived, other places she's been, and everything she knows how to do. And it's almost comical, like the fact she basically knows how to do everything. Any need you have, she knows how to do it. Like she just knows. And that's a good person to sort of meet when you're living somewhere that you don't really, know as well. If you're Olivia, who's only been at the house that she's staying at, which was her grandmother's house when she was a child, and doesn't really know it as well, like as an adult, you meet someone in this village who, if you needed anything fixed at the house, she could do it. If your car was jacked up, she probably knew how to fix that too. Your electricity is jacked in the house, the lights are messed up, you call Madeleine. Madeleine will hook you up with she'll fix like she's just like literally the best person in any community to know. And what's also she has such a unique, almost like you get a sense that she comes from like this, at least from my perspective and in my viewing, there was almost like this nomadic quality to her. She almost seemed like this monk. And the way Claire plays her, she's not like she doesn't play it in a way that's like this, it's in your face. It's very understated and kind of, really just like chill. She seems like she's a real cool person to sort of hang out with. And she's very matter of fact about stuff, how she tells her stories, and just kind of like, nothing's over exaggerated, or it's just kind of like, oh yeah, this happened. Like the craziest things could happen to her. And the way she just expresses, she just tells you what's happening is it's kind of like just a regular, it's Thursday, whatever. That's how she, but she also lets us in on a little bit of vulnerability when it comes to dynamics with her own mother. And that's some of the stuff that's the only time we really get to see any little. It's almost like her calm and like coolness is a little bit, it's shaken a little bit when it comes to talking about her mom or even engaging with her mom. Claire's performance is beautiful and nuanced, and I'm a fan. But the chemistry between Coachland and Claire is just electric. It's the kind of energy that you see, like it's the kind of energy you would hope for around the person you're most comfortable with. You could sit outside on a sunny day and not talk, and it's not awkward. That's what I see between these two characters, and I liked that. I really enjoyed that. Also, the other thing is like it's just not something you see often in American cinema too much. Where I think you're seeing a little bit more of it, but it's almost tainted with other stuff that doesn't feel like pure. Pure friendship and pure just sort of just hanging out. Like you have two women who they're just existing together. They genuinely enjoy each other's company. It's kind of the best. It's kind of a cool situation. There's no like weirdness or cattiness between them. There's really not a lot of tension between them, which works. In most stories, you would say, oh, it's kind of boring. They're just like they have like the best relationship. There's no there's no tension between them directly, but there is, separately, because one of the key things that comes up is, Olivia. Again, she's supposed to be writing this book about her grandmother, but she can't shake Madeline as a character, as a stand-in, and so the tension for Olivia is using Madeline as a stand-in for her grandmother, and how she's whether or not she will change that. And or if she decides to sort of stay with Madeline as a sort of surrogate, will she have a conversation with Madeline about that's Olivia's internal conflict. But between the two characters, there's no real like tension like that. They have kind of the best relationship. And when you factor in COVID, where people are social distancing and stuff, there's no real like weirdness between them. It's kind of like, oh, maybe don't touch me, maybe stand distance. Like it's very sweet how things are navigated between the two characters. And I was a fan of that. I actually really appreciated seeing how not only that dynamic depicted in that way, but how they portrayed it. The way they played it was and it felt very natural. It didn't feel like acting. It felt like very real between these two characters. And the other thing that was cool is that there's the concept of, so the movie is called Her Song, and the concept of what it is to have a song. The movie introduces this idea to us that every person has a song at birth, and that's their song until you're done. And the life you live and the experiences you have, how maybe you can't hear your own song, but the people around you can speak to the song that they're hearing. You can't hear it because you're living it, but the people who know you can hear your song and then can sing that song. And it's a really beautiful dynamic at play with Olivia and Madeline in that way. It's like Madeline is the one who has the song, but Olivia is the one who's hearing it. And at some point, us and some of the characters in the movie are also presented with this notion of what the concept of everybody having a song looks like for future generations. I thought that was kind of cool how the movie is bookended with that concept. Like Madeline introduces us to that, and then she's the one who ends the movie with sort of tying the concept of what it is to have a song together. It's really nice, really lovely stuff, and great writing by Keller. I think he did a great job. The script is light and feels sort of like it's not overly complicated. There's plenty of room for humor, and also a lot of room for contemplation. There's a lot of space for stuff to breathe. Scenes breathe, and the location gets to breathe. The scenarios get to breathe. You really are put into Olivia's position where she has time to go through some of the boxes of stuff that belong to her grandmother, to look at some of the letters that she's finding, and we get to sit with her as she's thinking about how to put the story together. And if you're a writer, that's the experience. You're doing all this research and you're trying to figure out how to compartmentalize and synthesize all the research and figure out how that's going to come out in the work you're writing. The other thing, as an aside, I'll mention that I thought was interesting, and actually pretty cool, when I consider the end of Cinequest last year and how that film, which was The Friend, the Naomi Watts, Bill Murray picture, and how that film dealt with a writer and a bunch of writers, but also centered on a writer who was struggling with grief and things and ends up writing something to help her process stuff. And then how this movie, the beginning of this year's Cinequest, also begins with a writer who's struggling to find the story about her grandmother, who she didn't really know outside of being an older woman. She didn't know who her grandmother was as a younger person. So trying to piece together all these sort of disparate elements through pictures and notes and everything at the house that her grandmother lived in is something that she's struggling with as a writer. And as a writer myself, obviously this is the kind of, this movie is almost like a writer's dream. You get to see yourself reflected in a different way that's all I think a lot of writers do. John Keller, even as the screenwriter of this movie, put a lot of personal experiences into the script. He had mentioned during the Q&A, he was in the south of France during COVID. He'd heard about the concept of what it is to like have a song. That all is from his experience. Threw that into the script. That's all we're doing. And it was cool to see it reflected here and to see it portrayed so just authentically. It felt very real. None of it felt fabricated. Another cool thing about this movie was time and history and how there's like a cyclical relationship. I mentioned earlier in the video how in some cases in that same village, in the village they were in, having to negotiate sheltering in place, thinking about because depending on who you are and how you thought about COVID during the time, watching something like that now, you might be triggered. It's almost like a form of sort of light PTSD when you see that many people wearing masks and social distancing. And when you're walking on the street, people are desperately trying to get away from you, across the street away from you to get away. There was a kind of battle when it comes to COVID. It was a fight to try to stay alive, especially when you knew how bad it would end up being for certain people. Some people got really sick. There's people who had ended up suffering from long COVID. People didn't make it. Not everybody made it out of COVID. And we're 6 years away, removed from the worst of the pandemic and sort of coming out of that as a civilian, someone who survived, someone who's gone through it. Maybe you've had COVID and you were worried about like whether or not how bad it was going to be for you. If you were someone who contracted the virus, there was something about like you had to sort of make sure you fought and to take care of yourself and stay alive, get vaccinated, do all the things you needed to do to make sure you weren't out of the game. Similar to World War II, if you were a civilian, during the Nazi occupation, you needed to make sure you didn't get caught up on the receiving end of that. And so it was interesting to have the movie call out some of those similarities. There were differences, but even like people trying to find good paper to write letters on. Now we had to worry about finding toilet paper. Back then, one of the things was obviously you had to worry about food because rations and things were an issue. But also if you were writing letters a lot, finding quality paper to write your letter on was something else that you needed to be mindful of. So just little things like that. It was interesting to see how it's almost the same stuff, even though like we're decades removed. But there's something about it that's not. Even when you think about it further, and how the notion of a pandemic is not new to civilization. I remember when COVID happened, there was a lot of newspaper articles talking about like the Spanish flu of 1918 and what that was like and how people lived through that, and how finding our way a century later to living through another pandemic and trying to figure that out, and how it wasn't new, but the virus itself was new, but pandemic life wasn't new, and trying to figure out how to negotiate social distancing and masking up and not seeing your people for a long time, not going to work, just being indoors all the time. So I liked how the movie illustrated that. Cinematography was fantastic. I think that although that had a lot to do with the location, it's a beautiful area in the south of France. I don't remember the village they were in, but it was just like, it feels like it would be kind of hard to mess that up. Like there weren't a lot of. This isn't a movie that has a lot of unique shots and camera angles and stuff. There's not a lot of crazy fancy camera moves, no dolly shots, tracking shots and stuff like that. This is not that kind of movie. This is very much this is a movie that is about putting you in the location and sort of firmly rooting you there. It's not about look at the beautiful vistas like you would see in a Bond picture, for instance. When you go to an exotic location, the camera's doing a lot of stuff. It's doing a lot of work it's panning across these beautiful vistas and landscapes and looking at the water and mountains. This is not doing that. The camera's mostly still in the movie. And so it's a combination of the work that the cinematographers did. Two cinematographers here. This is a team, Wilhelm Kuhn and Thomas Walzer, the cinematography team that really did the most that they could do to make the location pop. It's just such a beautiful place. And it gives you just enough of that to remind you every now and again where you are. And we pretty much stay there the whole time. This is one of those really intimate movies in that way, where it's essentially in one place and you see the same people throughout. It's like a play in that way. And there's like a set, and everything, all the scenes revolve around that one set, that one table, that one room, except the room in this case is the village. And you get to see a bunch of little different things. You see the guy who's herding the goats, and you get to see, I guess it's the same guy you see multiple times in this movie. And you get to see the old neighbors who are just next door hanging out, having a drink outside. It's just that kind of, it's almost like you get to be a part of the village with Olivia. And frankly, it's kind of nice. I have to mention the idea of synchronicity and writing. This movie makes it a point also to share that, at least in the context of the story, how things happen. You might write something in the scene. Olivia writes things, and then the next day she'll be in a conversation with some friends and the same thing happens, or something similar and very close to it happens. Even down to like character names. A name might be very similar to someone real who she just met after she wrote the scene. And I like to think that most writers have this experience at some point when they're writing something, where you've written a scene or something. It doesn't matter what it's about, but the essence of what you wrote, you might end up seeing in your daily life with other friends or with everything else. It's like, and it can be kind of trippy because it's like, oh, did you like manifest that? Life is full of coincidences and things, and like weird things that are just unexplainable. It's easy. I could see how someone like Olivia, there's a running joke in the movie about how Olivia might sort of make things happen. And I think it's easy for a character like her to write something and have it happen in real life, and then her sort of even jokingly think that, oh, because I wrote this, I wrote it into existence. It's so weird that this happened. But you had no idea. You didn't plan that. You couldn't have planned that. And so I like how the movie, that's another sort of thing about writing life that can come up, and the movie displays that. I cannot close this review without mentioning two other actors who I thought really added something to this movie, and that is Zach Grenier and Julian Jacob. Zach Grenier is probably the biggest actor in this movie that I knew. Everyone else was new to me, but Zach Grenier I knew. I'd seen him in Law and Order. I'd seen him in some other movies and different things, so I knew who he was. He comes in later in the movie, but him and Julian Jacob, who plays Julian, the two of those actors really add some seasoning from different corners that are a pretty good mashup. It's kind of like if you have these two flavors that you normally don't go together, and you try them out and you're surprised, like, oh, they actually taste pretty good. That's the kind of energy that they add to the movie. Again, Zach Grenier's not around long, but he definitely punches things up. If you were falling asleep or you were bored at the time he comes into the movie, you wake up and you're like, oh, this guy, whoa, got some energy going on. He does a really great job. It also adds, in fact, most of the humor, well, I wouldn't say most of it, a good deal of some of the more biting humor comes from his character. And Julian is a charming character. And I don't think I'm the only person to say who's seen that movie who can say that Julian was like just lovable. Like he's hard not to like. Like he's an easy, like, oh yeah, I kind of like that guy. And I think Julian Jacob did a fantastic job. If there's any criticism I think I have about this film, there's one moment, maybe two moments I think in this film where there's some interesting ADR. It seems like ADR issues. I'm not quite sure. I couldn't tell. There's one character who's having a conversation with Olivia, and there are two cutaways where Olivia's friend is saying something, and it's almost like the mouth doesn't match up with what you're hearing. Again, it doesn't happen a lot, and it's not that big a deal where it sort of derails the movie. It's something I noticed, and that's the only sort of thing that I thought was questionable. Like, oh, I'm not quite sure if it was that ADR, is it ADR issue, or was that something else? But aside from that, look, no real criticisms. This is a beautiful movie. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if this movie ends up on Amazon fairly soon. I'm almost positive it's already been picked up by some distributor or whatever. So I hope to get to talk to, again, John Keller about that and ask about, where does this film live beyond the festival? Because I think it's definitely one worth seeing. There's great acting on display. Again, the visuals are beautiful. And the story is, the emotion in the story is actually what, I mean, I was very emotionally sort of invested in it. And it's not like one of those bleeding emotional things, but it's something that it's very like, it's almost like I could see this being a really good, like a comfort movie for somebody. And I should also note, if you don't know, this movie is mostly in French, with occasional English thrown in, but this is primarily I think I would classify it a foreign language film since it's mostly in French, but it's a lovely film. I enjoyed it very much. So if you happen to be in the Bay Area, in town, I don't know that there's going to be another screening of this movie just yet, but do keep an eye out, because I'm positive this movie is going to have a significant life beyond the festival. If you've missed this movie, if you're in the Bay Area, you want to check out Cinequest. It's right downtown San Jose, and it runs through the 22nd, I think, of this month, March 22nd, Sunday. It'll be mostly in San Jose. There will be some screenings in Mountain View as well, but we'll see. There's gonna be a few showings there, so we'll see what the rest of the festival has in store. But if you're a film head and you want to see some movies and stuff, Cinequest is right around the corner. Look it up, cinequest.org. It's out there. There's some cool stuff going on, and I'm excited to continue coverage of the festival. So if you stuck around this long, this was a longer video than usual. Thank you for hanging out. I appreciate it. I know it's been a minute. We're gonna be back on and rolling along. We got a bunch of stuff to get through this week, so stay tuned. So I'm getting out of here now, but in the meantime, do take it easy, take care of yourself, and I will see you in the next video.